Hello everyone, and welcome to the 2018 Virginia Beach Chemtrail Conference. This is our first formal meeting on the East Coast, but happily it is an international event with speakers from Canada and South America, as well as presenters from regions across the United States. My name is Amanda Bays, but on the internet I'm better known as Madison Star Moon. Today I will have the pleasure of introducing some of the most passionate and knowledgeable leaders in the field of chemtrail pollution. They will focus on the causes and serious consequences to our health and environment brought about by this threat. They will also explore where we are as an instrument of opposition and what we can do to effectively confront the danger. We are, in one sense, a movement, a group of activists urgently concerned about the well-being of the planet, but we do not necessarily speak with one voice. We hold different theories about who and why this travesty is being carried out. We differ in our ideology and methods. Probably the most valuable benefit of this conference is the opportunity to learn and share, to hear diverse viewpoints, and to remain alert to the challenges we have before us. So again, welcome, relax, open your minds, and let's get down to the business of saving the world. For the past 7 years, my mission in life has been to stop the chemical spraying of our skies. I've reached out to every level of government in an attempt to have chemtrails investigated. To date, no one in any position of authority has helped me. Each agency refuses to take ownership of the issue. I am passed back and forth between inept officials who, without testing the emissions, claim that the trails we see in the sky are merely ice crystals. No one can know what is being sprayed into the atmosphere without testing the air. I testified before the EPA as a witness to spraying programs and even provided lab results of contaminated water, soil, blood, and hair. The EPA has never investigated any of those findings. I have hundreds of hours of recorded conversations proving the government is guilty of omission, failure to act. I also have thousands of photos and video evidence showing the devastation of these aerosol programs. All righty. Raphael O'Neill, aka Nola Butterfly, is a chemtrail activist who first became aware of the climate engineering issue in 2010 after seeing What in the World Are They Spraying? Michael Murphy's movie, and immediately noticed the chemtrails in our local skies in New Orleans. To help parents overcome some of the propaganda rolled out by NASA, she wrote a children's chemtrail book entitled Funny Clouds, A Chemtrail Tale. In her podcast, BTV, Beyond the Veil, she explores the climate engineering issue and weather beyond even chemtrails. Raphael is seeking to challenge the scientific community to answer her questions and claims, and only facts will do. So with that, I'm going to welcome Raphael.
I'm extremely grateful to have my message go out to you today, past my YouTube channel's suppressed views, past Facebook's forced timeouts and vague community guidelines, and despite the best efforts of my censors and government trolls who stalk me across the web and threaten to meet me here today. Speaking of which, are any of you guys here today? Ecoplex, ICA, AF Zimster, Peter Mitch.
Ew! Don't say their names out
Oh,
loud.
I'm so sorry. I mean, speak up now because, or forever hold your peace. I don't want to hear about how you were laughing at me at the conference later on when you're harassing me and wasting my time when I'm trying to do research. So, and it's too bad you're not here because I actually have some questions and I'm looking to be debunked. And today, up to date, I have not been debunked. The person who can debunk me, I will kiss because they will be giving me my life back. All right, well, it is appropriate for me in a full circle life event that this conference is taking place in Virginia Beach. And this is where I came from my hurricane during Katrina. My ex-boyfriend and his mother lived here, so this is where we came. And at that time, I knew nothing about chemtrails, contrails, weaponized weather, and when this short one-verse poem popped into my head in the weeks and days after I returned home to New Orleans, I didn't even know what all it would come to mean. Gone. Gone are the days I can listen to the rain falling down outside my window pane and not think that it is an enemy trying to wash us away. Gone. Something happens to you when you see your city as a bowl holding water. Some people recovered maybe a little better than me. Some of my friends never recovered. But little did I know back then how right that feeling would prove to be. So back then, the whole world watched our pitiable neglect unfold on television as if a hurricane in New Orleans had come as a big surprise to an official who had not foreseen the disaster scenario, even acting oblivious to where the convention center was at one point during the environmental disaster, while thousands of New Orleanians were left stranded on their roofs days after the storm. The total lack of response, while chaos was allowed to ensue, is shameful enough as it is in and of itself. But coupled with the testimony of Captain G, an Army Supply Acquisitions captain I had the incredible good fortune of being able to interview and document in my Chemtrail BTV podcast, it is downright criminal as well. You see, the thing about Captain G's testimony, the thing he couldn't believe or understand himself at the time, was that he was ordered to bring as many body bags to New Orleans as he could find 11 days before Katrina made landfall. And that 8 days prior to Katrina making landfall, he accumulated 5,226 body bags 115 miles out of New Orleans, Louisiana, NOLA. I didn't find out about Katrina until 3 days before Katrina made landfall. Didn't get out till 2 days after being stranded in the city without services, while my friends were up on their neighbors' roofs for 4 or 5 days after Katrina made landfall, waiting for relief. At the time of his order, Captain G thought there was an intel on an up-and-coming terrorist attack. But when he realized it was for a hurricane that actually happened, he asked how they knew there was going to be one with such certainty. He was given the excuse that they knew because of satellite prediction models gave them 200% accuracy. Though I personally lost no property during the flood, I buried 5 friends to suicide the following year, finding the last one myself. So nothing about the answer takes away my outrage at the lack of response, but only validates the feelings of having had someone try to wash us away. But I wouldn't discover Captain G until years after Katrina, nor did I know the slightest thing about climate engineering at the time, much less the difference between a contrail, a chemtrail, and whatever that funny word geoengineering was. Ironically, I would not wake up to chemtrails for another 5 years until after seeing the most amazing display of chemical hazing out of the skies, coincidentally, I don't believe in coincidences, immediately after just watching What in the World Are They Spraying? There were no chemtrails for 2 months after that. That was my wake-up call. Little did I know that some of the people who helped wake me up would be some of the gatekeepers that would later try to hold me back from exposing the truth themselves. But more on that later. Meanwhile, I had written my children's book, Funny Clouds, A Chemtrail Tale, which earned me special status amongst the government trolls and 7 bad reviews before I sold my first book. Taking on these debunkers, I dove deep into their contrail narrative and discovered why we can argue till the planes fly home and still not be able to get anywhere trying to prove to our beloved family and friends that the taking out of our skies is deliberate. Because the nature of the linguistic game is set up to keep us confused and off point. Contrails, chemtrails, geoengineering, which is the correct term? Well, right off the bat, I'll tell you I've never liked the term geoengineering, even though I sure feel smart saying it. But that's because you can't use climate engineering to fix the problems of climate engineering if you're not honest that climate engineering caused the problem in the first place. Right?
Yeah.
By design, the term geoengineering ends up justifying itself. And so is therefore the worst word to use if you really want to be intellectually honest and technically correct. And if you argue about whether it's a contrail or a chemtrail, a well-gate-kept narrative, as you will soon see, you will miss the point that it is actually indeed both. Yes, both. Surprised? Not all of you. All contrails are chemtrails. After all, that condensation isn't forming on Pixidus, darling. Oh, it's not a chemtrail, it's just water vapor. Oh, really? It's just a contrail. Well, guess what? Contrails matter. It turns out As NASA says, and I will quote their raw data, not their spin on things, even small changes in the location of and abundance of clouds could change the climate more than the anticipated changes brought about by greenhouse gases, human-produced aerosols, or other factors associated with global change. Even small changes in the location or abundance of clouds could change the climate more than the anticipated changes brought about by greenhouse gases, by other greenhouse gases. Human-produced aerosols or other factors associated with global change. That should be all we need right there to say that the climate change narrative is not complete. So that means that whether or not that cloud condensed on a chemical or pixie dust, the albedo modification of the cloud and the heat reflection and absorption properties of it has tremendous value, regardless of what chemical it is nucleated on. Now you're changing chemicals and you're adding to the properties, and you're changing the properties even more. But regardless, just the fact that you have a cloud, you are affecting the heat balances in the atmosphere, in the environment. But chemtrails means deliberate spraying, and contrails are normal condensation. Some of you may be thinking, so there is a difference. Well, then I ask you, why are we normalizing contrail pollution at any level? Engine exhaust is highly polluting, and whether there is a weaponized agenda or a nefarious chemical cocktail piggybacking on that contrail or not is almost irrelevant, because all contrails have health and environmental implications regardless. Some more than others, of course. Now, this is neither hidden nor is it showcased by MSN, mainstream media. We need to stop attacking each other and start paying attention to the monstrous pollution we are letting off the hook. Greater scrutiny and public transparency with the contrail pollution problem would yield greater scrutiny of any other covert program riding and hiding in the coattails of the persistent contrail phenomena. In the meantime, while we've been fighting this chemtrail versus contrail narrative out with our friends and beloved community, few of us realize that they legalized chemtrails for geoengineering purposes last year in April 2017, when Trump signed HB 353 into law with the Weather Forecaster Act of 2017. Taking not only the burden of proving chemtrails exist off of us, but taking the liability off those doing the chemtrailing as well by declaring it legal to do so for national security measures. This, of course, is the bogus logic that attempts to justify the use of the very technology we are exposing here today. A good solution to the chemtrail-contrail problem could be a bill such as Rosalind Peterson's H6011, if I'm not mistaken, written for Rhode Island, which would specifically ban all geoengineering and or environmental modifications that are detrimental to human and environmental health across the board. More info on how to use the platform in your state is available at zerogeoengineering.org or through California gubernatorial candidate Peter Valentino's campaign info. Peter Valentino is running for governor of California on the anti-chemtrail, anti-GMO, anti-mandatory vaccine campaign, and I would strongly suggest you spread the word with all your California friends, because we need more people like him. Another reason I don't like wasting too much time on the neuro-linguistic programming game of the contrail versus chemtrail narratives is because, you know what the most prominent greenhouse gas on Earth is?
Methane?
Great guess, because you would be right if you weren't lied to. Because when you Google IPCC greenhouse gas chart, and you look at the image search results, you will find CO2 is the largest portion of the pie. But it's not until you actually add water vapor plus water vapor to your IPCC graph chart, IPCC greenhouse gas chart, that you get water vapor is 80 to 90% of greenhouse gases. This is a scientific fact. It's a scientific fact that CO2 pushers, CO2 deniers, and chemtrail activists all don't really own. And that represents billions of dollars of gatekeeping when three sides of a narrative are clueless onto the most basic scientific fact. That water vapor is the most prominent greenhouse gas on Earth, and this is not a throwaway point. They'll say, oh, it's not as important as CO2, do you actually need CO2? They loop it around. There is a feedback effect. went off here, so let's see here. Why was so much money spent trying to cover up the significance of water vapor from public scrutiny and debate? Besides, one, to help normalize contrail pollution. It's just water vapor. Just water vapor. Shh, it's okay. Shh. Two, to reduce in the public mind the significance of albedo modification that contrail cirrus was capable of doing. Was there another reason the significance and relevance of water vapor to the greenhouse cycle was being covered up? My podcast, BTV, issued forth yet more witnesses who held the key. One was a former Air Force weather observer who said she observed cloud seeding operations conducted in the 80s to allegedly end drought for farmers, when the reverse was actually true, that it was causing drought. She also testified that she didn't understand any of the new cloud formulas these days because they make no sense, and that the flat bottom cloud bases have disappeared. So she has no idea what the base level of these clouds are like. She used to be able to tell. Also, she says it makes no sense for there to be more moisture at the top of the atmosphere than on the bottom near the ground because there's less air up there, and so there should be, therefore, less moisture capable of being held. Now, the official reason for there being more contrails that persist and linger, according to the literature, is the presence of ice supersaturated regions, which, ISSRs, which mysteriously have become more prevalent in recent years. Allegedly, there are more contrails in the sky because there is more moisture up there, while on the ground it appears to be drying out. Now, this is where it gets a little confusing because contrails have been proven to have a dehydrating effect, but also are capable of helping create ice supersaturated regions, ISSRs, the one condition that is needed in order for all contrails to form and persist. And we've tested this out. We've seen commercial airlines, the not military, doing contrails on days they shouldn't have, but they said, oh, the ISSRs were high, and so therefore they would create a contrail. So that's very convenient. But all you need to do to create ice supersaturated regions is send a fleet of planes up ahead of time to supersaturate the air. It's like this cycle of death. I mean, you guys can understand what I'm saying? That the contrails supersaturate the air, they dry it out, they create these supersaturated regions, and then the air is just so thick, of course, everything's billowing out. No matter what other chemicals you really got going on. So all that aside, why we lose an argument, despite when we know they're spraying us. So, allegedly there are more contrails. Okay, so this term, ISSR, explains all contrail phenomena, according to debunkers, even though the term itself is missing from the NOAA's glossary of meteorological terminology. It's at the center of a big conspiracy that they're trying to wipe out, and they don't mention ISSRs. Why? Again, because they do not want you realizing the significance of water vapor. But is there another source of these ISSRs, maybe? Turns out these ISSRs are a major key, though I would not realize that for a while longer until it slowly dawned on me that there was one person I would mirror in my podcast over and over again because he was the only person who could actually explain to me where my severe weather came from. That person was Weather War 101. After seeking him out online personally, we came out with a Weather War 101 interview, highly recommended, that made waves just before the 2017 hurricane season got going. As soon as we got some traction on our interview, the gatekeepers came out in full force to try and gatekeep the chemtrail community from realizing that not only should we be looking up, but also we should be looking down at the fact that all these 1,000-year floods were coming out of rapid, synchronized water vapor releases, massive synchronized water vapor releases from wet surface air coolers put out by power plants that are then steered into place by Doppler radar to deliver these waters wherever they are desired and sent. Having self-admittedly formerly worked for power companies 30 years prior, Dane Whittington did his best to debunk this crucial realization Weather War 101 has been able to prove for years, picking straw man arguments and claiming the whole idea was preposterous. Despite there being a 2004 patent for cloud seeding via cooling towers, but there being a whole history of desired and inadvertent seeding from cooling towers, ranging from just recently, when admittedly the Pittsburgh plant was caught creating a blizzard hyperlocally, to back in the 60s and 70s when they were studying the meteorological significance of inadvertent weather modification from cooling towers back then. Actually, I have a 1965 document that talks about seeding over cooling towers. Not a new idea. They were setting into the 70s and then they stopped. Officially. Loads of interest is going on in the literature before all of a sudden disappearing and not being seen as relevant to the climate change narrative in any way, but taken all together, it is very relevant. 70% of our energy created is released as heat waste. I heard that, this is an aside and I shouldn't get too much off track, that Carter had a way to close a loop, a nuclear loop, back in the 80s and he turned it down. And back in the day I didn't understand why, now I do. They couldn't infuse the hydrological cycle with this water vapor. I had a video I wanted to show you about NASA showing the anthropogenic effects of sulfur emissions. Well, you can replace sulfur for water vapor because a lot of these factories that are there are releasing water vapor as well. So it has that same undeniable effect. To say that we don't affect our environment is ridiculous. But what was weird about Weather War 101 is that he kept telling me to focus on the power plants while he was schooling me not to worry about Doppler radar so much. This is where I get weary, that he too might be a gatekeeper. I don't know. But because anytime someone tries to keep my attention away from something, I end up wanting to inspect it even closer. Kind of stubborn like that. And so after our interview is when I made the discovery that, in my opinion, is the most vulnerable Achilles heel of the entire climate engineering puzzle. That proves once and for all that our weather is indeed weaponized and our hydrological cycle is hacked. And the discovery is this, that the entire hurricane season of 2017 made landfall with the eye of the storms going directly, think pool table, directly into Doppler radar, without exception. And this trend continued inland for several Dopplers more after making landfall. I have the evidence, as crazy as it sounds. It's a matter of historical document. Even if I drop dead right now, you all can pick this up. I was so excited by this discovery, and naturally couldn't wait to hear why Weather War 101 didn't mention this himself. And why, under these circumstances, he would not acknowledge my discovery. Now, he talked about Doppler steers the storms, but I didn't realize it, like, literally brings it right into it. Irma, Nate, Maria, all went right into Doppler radar. Puerto Rico taken out with one Doppler radar storm. Millions of people displaced. They're not even done committing suicide in that group. That'll be next year. So did Hurricane Harvey, but because it triangulated between these three Doppler's radars, it's trickier to prove. But with Harvey, I was given an off-the-record witness in the military who was stationed in Texas at the time and warned me about the storm before my meteorologist did, because he was given an earlier warning when he was told to pack his bags and be ready to evacuate before it was a tropical depression. I posted that on Facebook and got some attention. Before the meteorologist at any time. This is the second source that testified to me about advanced knowledge of the storm. And this second one was able to give me the warning so that I could place the warning out there before my meteorologist as well. After being kicked out to Harvey's, when I made the Doppler and eye of the storm for myself, because I was watching all the storms like a hawk. My fabulous team, without whom I could not exist back in New Orleans, and I then went back and checked out the storm that was personal to us, Katrina. The storms I interacted with 6 Doppler radars in a row. It's like you find the murderer of your best friend. But still, it wasn't until I went online to check on what Doppler radar was doing and noticed that not only was it down that day, but we had 100% normal clouds, with flat bottoms, and all in a thick fog that lingered the following morning. That it occurred to me, along with all the other evidence, oh my God, the entire hydrological cycle was hacked. I didn't write this in, but I Google search atmospheric rivers because it seems to be more prevalent now. We hear about atmospheric rivers, atmospheric rivers. You know that term didn't exist on Google before 1988 Doppler rolled out? And then the first term is in 1992, when they refer to it as a bomb, atmospheric river bomb. Now we got the Pineapple Express going through California all the time. They don't get any rain, but they get flood. I asked Weather Whirlwind 3 times to tell me what he thought of the Doppler steering the storms around the eye. Twice he ignored the question, and the third time he never got back to me. Now he's AWOL. He hasn't put out a video since December. With Doppler radar interacting so directly with our hurricanes, why would he just focus on power plants? Maybe he's just a good explanation for why he left me hanging and now he's AWOL, or maybe he's just another gatekeeper. See, I don't know, but he gave me the most valuable, in my esteem, piece of the climate engineering puzzle, and the one that makes the most sense in regards to what I was seeing in my daily skies for myself. The weather was happening, the weather was happening not just at home, in some far-off facility in Alaska, harbor, but locally as well. And this was the most damning piece of the climate engineering pie that contradicts the whole global warming narrative and why billions of dollars were spent hazing out the significance of water vapor. See, even gatekeepers can show you the way once you realize what it is they don't want you to see. So why all the gatekeeping and distractions from water vapor and Doppler and hurricanes especially? Because that is the Achilles heels for industrialists. It is the one thing they cannot hide or pretend is related to global warming. If you had found a way to hack the hydrological cycle, wouldn't you have sent your men out ahead of the narrative you were expecting would ensue, so that they can control the narrative, giving you half-truths and distractions that will keep you from realizing that yes, not only are some of our clouds artificially induced and laced with various chemical cocktails, but the entire hydrological cycle is hacked and is being managed via microwaves that heat up water, clouds, and whatever else gets in the way. All that is needed for Doppler to heat up a cloud is for it to be left on one spot for too long. Something that is hard to prove intent on allegedly, because proving that Doppler was left on deliberately is hard to prove. But taking the sum total of hurricanes that follow this trend of diving directly into Doppler in one season or over many seasons will make it a statistical odd or impossibility that is unlikely to be matched naturally. And that is the trick to proving liability in court, even if intent cannot be established. It would be foolish for me and my family to try and take this to court, as we all could guess what would happen to us if we did, based off just the threats Facebook allows anti-chemtrail activists, terrorists to make. I complained about this meme. It was left up while I was blocked for a few weeks on Facebook. It says, "Don't hit a chemtrailer with glasses, hit him with a bat." Apparently that makes Facebook community guidelines. That scares me. But a group of people outraged and recently made homeless by severe man-made weather could band together and demand accountability in safer numbers. All I'm doing today is showing you where your troubles lie, and you will need to do something about it. Do not think I have this. I do not. I've come further than I thought I ever could, just by being the kid in The Emperor Wears No Clothes, by refusing to be bamboozled by snake oil salesmen, until I get an answer that makes sense in my heart, my head, and my gut. I need you and others to step up, and thanks to all who do and who are here today. You are my heroes. We're in this together. No one's getting off of this. We're not going to Mars. There's no escaping. So, while I know what I'm saying may indeed be hard to believe, even for those who consider themselves awake, you must realize that this is nothing more than what Tesla told J.P. Morgan Chase would be possible in the future after making fog so thick during his Colorado Springs lab experiments back in 1899 that people couldn't see their hands in front of their faces. 1899. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in a world of hot water. And before the technology gets further diversified through the integration of more arrays, and thus harder to pinpoint and prove, we must cut them off at the pass, preventing the rollout of 5G, which will be more of what Tesla foresaw for the world, only at a micro level. And we must, while it is still possible to do so, hold them accountable for the storms we can prove were steered, and demand accountability, whether they want to claim it was done deliberately or not. Because we're not only seeing weather interacting with Doppler radar and power plants, but we are witnessing is the completion of the hacking of the hydrological cycle that Tesla said would be possible well over 100 years ago. Thank you so much for your time. Enjoy the other speakers today and stay till the end for my Doppler timeline presentation, as it's sure to have something you've never heard before. It'll blow a few minds. It blew my own mind while I was researching this. It will add to our chemtrail timeline and add dimension to our historical perspective. God bless us all. We need it.
Here's the radar out of Key West. There is the eye of the hurricane. Look at the eye of the hurricane going right over Doppler radar. It's imminent landfall right now. And look. Imminent landfall. And look. Is on Big Coppin Key. Okay, that's where the Key West National. This is not a hurricane. But Key West this is a land-based weather event. Is right on the edge of this yellow here. So the oranges and the reds going right. Look at this. Right over it. Here is the eye wall. Look at this. How all of this area is being impacted. It's going this way. Meanwhile, up into hey Doppler. Oh yeah, we're just telling you what's going on. What a coinky dink. What a freaking coinky dink. Not in terms of storm surge. I do anticipate a lot. Your party's over. That's a big concern for them. But at least it looks like the worst of those winds. Get the word out, people. If you don't think this is enough information, then look at what all we've been saying. We're seeing these storms coming over the next rad. Over the next rad. Over the next rad. 10 miles from making landfall means that the American landfall of this hurricane is imminent. It will happen in the lower Florida Keys. Not in Key West, but another one of the... All right, here we go, guys. The storm is being guided, okay, from next rad to next rad. The eye is going right towards the next rad centers. Here we go. Gonna have to re-add that to the edit. Let's see if we just keep ping-ponging from next rad to next rad. So far, every storm takes place over next rad Doppler radar. No meteorologist has noticed? None? Here we go. Whoop, 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 whoop. Yeah, got a little beam. Suck it up, baby, suck it up. And then let's see what other... So, October 7th, 2017... This was Nate making landfall towards Nexrad in Slidell, just like Katrina had. I noticed, thanks to the work of Weather War 101 and my own good fortune and good providence, noticed that the hurricanes in Irma, where the eye was going from Nexrad to Nexrad, and I noticed weather was occurring regularly over Nexrad. And a team of us went back and started looking at other hurricanes, and we haven't finished our research. We're all very busy people, but going back for well over a decade, since before Katrina even, these storms were guiding into Nexrad. And we missed catching a few of the ones in between here, but this is the other Nexrad in
Mississippi, Alabama border. Pulling off. There it goes. It goes right over the other one. And then there's the eye. Going right into it, huh? Right into it. Come on. Right into it. Here you go. Whoa. I mean, you gotta admit, it's the pattern is the odds. Freaking coincidence is almost impossible. Okay, it goes right into it. I mean, it goes right into it. This is remarkable coincidence. Every time there's a storm, it's going in towards right for a next rad unless another one goes, and then it goes right for that one. The formula's getting really predictable. It's right in there. I mean, they called it, yeah. This area, called it right in the middle. How do they know? Oh, so this is going to be the next area. You better believe it. They would know. Which is what? Which next rad are we talking about? This is the community like that. So it's going to be around KHTX, and then what? KMRX is going to take it out, and then KFCX. And then it'll be right on the same. I don't know. There you have it, folks. Catch this shizzle right here. Here it goes, coming for the next one. Wow. Oh, the ring. The ring. As it goes right over KHTX. Okay? I mean, KHTX. So we went from KBMX to KHTX. I for I. We were on KMOB. We were going towards KLIX until KMOB brought us over this way. We're just hopping over next rads, guys. The story continues. Okay, this is just to document what comes up. IPCC greenhouse gases. The first ones are the ones with CO2. Does this show? Does you see greenhouse gas emissions by sector? CO2 from fossil fuel. Where's the water? Where's H2O, which is 80 to 90% of the greenhouse gases? Okay. CO2 from fossil fuel. Shares of global anthropogenic GHG emissions. Why are contrails not on here? I promise I'm not making it up. Water vapor is... We've got to find a graph here that talks about water vapor. Carbon dioxide. I mean, this is just Google Images, so this is showing me all the articles that would... Carbon dioxide is the big bulk here. Am I a liar? I must be a liar. I mean, how can the largest carbon dioxide... All these maps are showing carbon dioxide. as the most prominent carbon dioxide. Wow. And yet, we're just going to change this. Let's add water vapor. If you look for it, they can't hide it from you because it is a scientific fact. Oh yeah, here we go. Water vapor. CO2, other. See that? Water vapor. It's there. I didn't make it up. It's a scientific fact. And yet, did we see that anywhere when we Googled greenhouse gases, IPCC? Here, look. Where's that water vapor chart? There, no, no. That's CO2 from fossil fuel. I mean, I'm not an apologist, okay? Stop right there. I'm not an apologist for industry. I didn't like the BP oil spill and the Corexit they used afterwards to clean up in the Gulf, and I don't eat fish from my region anymore. Okay? But how do we go from that to... sorry. IPCC greenhouse. Where is water? Where is water? Water isn't anywhere. Do you know how they scour and control the Google searches more than ever. They are deciding for you what is real and what is fake news, and yet the most basic scientific fact is being kept from you. U.S. greenhouse gas emissions 2014. What about all that just water vapor? It's just water vapor. It's just water vapor we saw landing in Louisiana out of the power plants that synchronized their releases to feed into the storm. It's just water vapor we see coming out of clouds, and yet NASA says even small changes in the abundance or location of clouds could change the climate more than the anticipated changes caused by greenhouse gases. It is a greenhouse gas, you dumb fuck. Human-produced aerosols or other factors associated with global change. And you all are ignoring this, calling us crazy conspiracy theorists. All contrails are chemtrails, first of all. They're not just water vapor. They've got soot, CO2, NO2, whatever, the chemical cocktails, and whatever other nanoparticles. And when you're talking about condensation nuclei, it doesn't matter how little you have of it, right? And so you have these artificial clouds, even if it's just water vapor. Even small changes in the abundance or location of clouds could change the climate more than the anticipated changes caused by greenhouse gases, human-produced aerosols, or other factors associated with global change. And even this denies. This doesn't say caused by other greenhouse gases, because clouds are water vapor, right? Condensed water vapor. And they're showing you that's not even significant here until you think about adding water vapor. Now it shows up. Tell me what you know about climate change and global warming, and I'll tell you what you're ignoring. It's hiding in plain sight. using a statistical method based on the in situ optical measurements performed during the concert campaigns 2008 and 11. Study on air traffic effects on climate. Dehydration effects from contrails in a coupled contrail climate model. So we have a drier ground floor. We have more humidity up in the upper troposphere than we do on the lower troposphere. Something is drying down below and humidity is being inserted at a higher level, but it's drying, it's dropping the aerosols more and having a dry, just this doesn't create the cycle of drought. Drought for the Northwest. Although snowpack levels throughout the West are average or better this year. Cloud seeding. The Northwest faces another year of drought. Well, 1994.
I was trained adjunct Air Force by the National Weather Service. Now, the technology that we used was 40 years ahead of anything that was sitting in people's homes. And that's par for the course with the military. In 1983, they had just kicked into gear full weather manipulation. And I was in the military at that time as a weather forecaster.
Full weather model.
And it was, the facade was to help farmers in times of drought. And that's what they patented under, was relief to drought and famine situations, when the reverse is actually to create famine and drought situations.
Right.
At each stratum of the atmosphere, which could be 1,000 feet, 5,000 feet, 500 feet. It all depends on what stratum they're looking at. All right? It's very inexact science, believe me. We did not have the red phone to God. The only place that you can predict the possibility of humidity is at base level, which is usually from 0 to 4,000 feet in the air. And that is with 20% accuracy rate.
Okay. So these are not readings from balloons that get an actual...
No, you can't get relative humidity from a balloon. I never did. We never did.
Okay. And is there any chance that the technology might have changed since...
Yes.
When were you in the Air Force?
I don't understand the new formulas. They don't make any sense to me.
When were you in the Air Force?
1979 to 1985.
Okay. So you know when they started in 1983. Were you
Right.
aware of it? Yeah, because you were part of the weather, for food.
Yes, weather for food, yeah.
And it created drought and famine instead of relieved it. And those were complaints that were going on for a while, actually, because that was in the Senate committee hearing, one of the complaints they listed in 1970. So this is not a new story. And the World Meteorological Organization admitted in their own report, even though they said there was no weather modification going on in the United States, in the same report later on in a timeline thing, they credit hydrological companies having been some of the players that have been at it the longest in the States for 50 years ongoing. So if there's a program going on for 50 years ongoing, then how can we say there's no weather modification going on in the States? Why is that not being cataloged and reported? And that didn't even include all the military experiments, and we know that the military's not going to just... The largest industrial military complex is just not going to just all of a sudden sit on its hands about it when they've been doing it since the beginning of time. So there's no way really to monitor the humidity, and you are also saying it's not possible to have humidity that much, like more humidity on the upper atmosphere than on the lower atmosphere.
No,
What?
it's not possible. Because the farther up you get, the less air there is.
And
The less
so what?
condensation nuclei, which is exactly what it's dust particles. It's anything that a water molecule can attach to in order to form a cloud. And I'm going to tell you something. None of the clouds that I see on a daily basis are anything like clouds. They're all fake clouds.
Yeah.
Can't even find the bases on a stratus level. They all have this icky goo that comes out from the bottom of every single freaking cloud. I can't tell you where the bases are of a cirrus. I can't.
I'm a meteorology senior. But I'm going to be graduating soon. I'm like 22%. NASA's for space is cool and stuff.
The phone? A phone, yes. That's what happens when I leave me here by myself.
Oh, okay, I know. You guys are spoiling me. Seriously.
Well, the IT restrictions on everything here. I'm supposed to
We just got a long email where it's saying don't use version of.
well, so exactly, right? So I don't understand why. I wonder. Yeah, shipped back. So.
In the 50s or the 60s, NASA was interested in developing a national program for weather modification. What is there anybody that can talk about the current day program for? You don't know anything about that? Okay.
I would say Google. Google is your friend.
I did, and that's how I found out about it.
Okay.
So it was a document, I don't know, somewhere in there, but does NASA engage in any kind of weather modification today that you know? Oh, okay, so you're not your department. What department are you in?
I'm in a visualization studio.
Yeah, okay.
So we generate these images.
Oh, yeah.
I write software so we can show them up on video.
Cool. Well done.
If you ever wonder where the rain comes from, here it is. This is Lamar County, some kind of power plant. They're using wet surface air coolers, and they're generating clouds like you would not believe. I've just been sitting here on a bike ride, getting all wet. And it's these guys right here that are making the weather, combined with whatever other goddamn crap they're using. Talk about fucked up. Look at this stuff. Goddamn fucking cloud machines.
I was trained adjunct Air Force by the National Weather Service. Now, the technology that we used was 40 years ahead of anything that was sitting in people's homes. And that's par for the course with the military. In 1983, they had just kicked into gear full weather manipulation. And I was in the military at that time as a weather forecaster.
Full weather model.
And it was, the facade was to help farmers in times of drought. And that's what they patented under. was relief to drought and famine situations, when the reverse is actually to create famine and drought situations.
Right.
At each stratum of the atmosphere, which could be 1,000 feet, 5,000 feet, 500 feet. It all depends on what stratum they're looking at. All right? It's very inexact science, believe me. We did not have the red phone to God. The only place that you can predict the possibility of humidity is at base level, which is usually from 0 to 4,000 feet in the air. And that is with 20% accuracy rate.
Okay. So these are not readings from balloons that get an actual.
No, you can't get relative humidity from a balloon. I never did. We never did.
Okay. And is there any chance that the technology might have changed since?
Yes.
When were you when were you in the Air Force?
I don't understand the new formulas. They don't make any sense to me.
When were you in the Air Force?
1979 to 1985.
Okay. So you know when they started in 1983. Were you
Right.
aware of it? Yeah, because you were part of the weather, for food.
Yes, weather for food. Yeah.
And it created drought and famine instead of relieved it. And those were complaints that were going on for a while, actually, because that was in the Senate committee hearing. One of the complaints they listed in 1970. So this is not a new story. And the World Meteorological Organization admitted in their own report, even though they said there was no weather modification going on in the United States, in the same report later on, in a timeline thing, they credit hydrological companies having been some of the players that have been at it the longest in the States for 50 years ongoing. So if there's a program going on for 50 years ongoing, then how can we say there's no weather modification going on in the States? Why is that not being cataloged and reported? And that didn't even include all the military experiments, and we know that the military's not going to just, the largest industrial military complex is just not going to just all of a sudden sit on its hands about it when they've been doing it since the beginning of time. So there's no way really to monitor the humidity. And you are also saying it's not possible to have humidity that much, like more humidity on the upper atmosphere than on the lower atmosphere?
No, it's not possible. Because the farther up you get, the less air there is.
And so what?
Condensation nuclei, which is exactly what it's dust particles. It's anything that a water molecule can attach to in order to form a cloud. And I'm going to tell you something. None of the clouds that I see on a daily basis are anything like clouds. They're all fake clouds.
Yeah.
Can't even find the bases on a stratus level. They all have this icky goo that comes out from the bottom of every single freaking cloud. I can't tell you where the bases are of a cirrus. I don't know what level. Like right now, I'm looking outside, and I'm trying to determine the base level, which would be my report, as in 5 scattered, meaning 5,000 scattered, 5,000 feet in elevation, scattered. I can't find a bottom. I can't find a base, and I can't do it with altitude. I can't find the bases of the clouds anymore. I'm guessing, and my scientific guess is pretty freaking good. But right now, I'm looking out here in this ugly muck that we live in every day. I see one cloud with a base, but they're not consistent. And then I look farther away, and there's no, a base of the cloud is darker. It's the dark point where it sits at the elevation, which allows you to determine its height from the ground. Okay? And right now, if I was to look out there, which I'm doing, I have one cloud that I see one base on, but it has all this dew hanging from it. And that is the trigger. It's all goo. There's no bases. So I'm guessing that I've got a 5,000-foot overcast sky. But I don't know for sure, because I can't find a base.
The whole thing is a big cone that comes out of that plate right there.
Yeah, coming out of that factory.
I mean, it's hard to believe, but there it is. I mean, you can't deny it. That thing is directly over that power plant.
Yeah. Power plants and other industry. What kind of industry is that?
Chemical industry.
Chemical industry. Creating climate change. CO2 ain't that big a deal. Clouds, my friends. Clouds. Pay attention to them.
Really bad.
I mean, what the fuck? Come on, man. Really? It's monstrous. Ground cloud. Monstrous. Where do you think it's coming from? Here's another one and another one. I mean, they're all just power plant pop-offs. Look at that. That's monstrous. These are monstrous power plant pop-offs. This is not natural booms. What are you talking about? You follow these and you end up at a power plant, okay? And they're doing it all around. It's like you think it's coming off of the water, but there's nothing coming off of the water. Right now, all the air is like Dopplered, right? All the air is like, no, there's no clouds anywhere around. But then these are billowing. There's just very high altitude cirrus left over, probably from some trails, but all around we have major, I mean, look at this. Major ground clouds. This is not natural water vapor. Oh yeah, my camera just blurred. You think that's a natural cloud? Come on. Are you freaking kidding me? What kind of mimosity is that? That's a big, like... Ah. See? I can't even see it. I can't even see it's coming from the ground. It's coming from the ground. These are ground clouds. These are power plant clouds. Okay, guys? Can we add that to the cloud list, to the new cloud list, NASA? Hey, I found a new cloud. Why don't you add these guys? anthropogenic WSAC release clouds, wet surface air coolers, seeding over cooling towers exists in documents from 1965, guys. From 1965. From 1965. Look at this shit. I'm gonna say, yeah? How come one of the people I was talking to has been watching the clouds pop off from the same place in Texas and West Louisiana every day from cell phone radar? I mean, you can just see it. You can see it if you know what you're looking for. And actually, if you have intellectual honesty, you will start understanding the weather if you keep this in mind. These are little choo-choo puffs.
Okay, we got a lot to talk about, and first of all, I want you to look at this storm. It looks very ragged, every bit as ragged as it was yesterday. That, in a sense, really hasn't changed much. Think about that buzzsaw look of most hurricanes and tropical storms. There's the center. All of the weather is north and east of the center. And you say, well, then if that's the case, then why are we looking at tropical storm warnings across our area? That's a good question. What happened today is that center relocated a little bit more to the east. So because of that, the Hurricane Center thinks there's a decent chance we could at least see tropical storm force gusts from Pinellas County, anywhere along the coastline, down through Manatee and Sarasota. A lot of folks are saying, Dennis, could that be extended north into Pasco, Hernando, and Citrus? Eventually, it could, but that is not the forecast at this point in time. So what is? This track looks pretty reminiscent to what it was yesterday, doesn't it? Going off to the north and then eventually off to the northwest. Yesterday we were saying Mobile, Alabama for landfall. I'm still saying Pensacola to Mobile. But again, the difference is before it starts making that turn, we think it's going to get a little bit closer to the Bay Area, not close enough to do significant damage, but close enough to increase some gusty winds along the coast. The rain forecast is not changing. I still think we're looking at rain of about 2 to 3 inches of rain later tonight and tomorrow. A lot of consensus where the center's going. The reason the models have had a tough time here is because there hasn't been a real center. It's been moving around kind of like a whack-a-mole game, if you think about it, popping up all over the place. And now eventually we are getting a better idea where that center is. Then I think it's given the models a better idea of where it's going. So in terms of a tightened Doppler radar, we've just had some nuisance rains all day long, but if you look down to the south, that's where the heavier weather comes in. And I think it rolls in later on tonight. Futurecast shows this evening, if you're going out, actually not a bad night. Yes, some light showers around the area, but certainly nothing heavy. That, I think, rolls in well after midnight and by tomorrow morning. And when this arrives, I think you're going to notice it. That's when the rains pick up, and that's when the winds get quite a bit gustier. And we'll
all these localized water vapor releases. You could see it here. 1, 2, 3. I mean, it. Let's check this out here. Kind of Doppler's kind of being weak here. It's being. Oh, see, that's fading out. Well, this is getting weak here. They're just pulling it in wide. They're trying to just do something new. We don't even know where the storm is. It's just so big and it's at the last minute, kind of not really, and we don't know where to evacuate. Oh, but the military knows where to be or where to get their boys out of. Always, they do. But the people are going to find out at the last minute because they want to do maximum damage. casualty. But this is some weird system. This isn't. I mean, what is this? It's definitely being it's being fed. They're gonna try to just build it, or huh? I mean, it's a lot of water vapor to manage. All right, so now let's check out. And let's animate, right? Yeah, there's your beam. So they're drawing it into oh, okay. What you're sucking it, it's kind of, there was this. There we go. I mean, you see how that what's reading it and then it's feeding it, right? It's like reading it and feeding it. They're leaving that beam on there. It's got to be heating up the path. So what's going on here? Oh, this just frees up on me? What about this one? Animate this product. See that? It's not really. Curiosity killed the cat. Satisfaction brought him back. Man. Okay. Wow. Bringing in moisture, bringing in moisture. Well, boys and girls, I had to pull over on the side of the road to finish capturing this. But apparently it looks like they haven't worked on new technology yet or perfected it. So, yes, what I captured yesterday was right. That beam from Alabama is where it's coming into. And you can see it right now. Doppler radar, yet again. Weather coming in the direction the beam is coming. Of course, oh yeah, they're just reading it. They're just reading it. But it's coming in over Doppler radar, okay? It's not coming in over, like, the area over here. You know, that's not where it's coming in. It's not coming in to the area over there. If you ever play a game of pool, okay, there are pockets on a pool table. There's a lot of them. But it doesn't mean your balls are going to go in them just because you're banging them around. And it doesn't mean they're going to go from one pocket to another pocket to another pocket without bouncing off on some random area of the pool table. So to say that there's a lot of Doppler radars, okay, to say that there's a lot of Doppler radars when they keep making when storms keep making landfall. I mean, no, a storm can go through here. A storm can go through there. It doesn't have to keep going bing, 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 bing. But it does. Okay? I mean, not in a zigzag pattern. But Katrina did this. Boom, 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 boom. I mean, it was...
This is a statistical impossibility. And they've been doing this for a long time. I mean, they've been perfecting it. I think at first they could only steer storms that were actually there. But now they can actually create the storms from beginning, middle, and end. They know where they're sending it. They know where they're sending it before the storm is even on the radar of anybody. And meteorologists are starting to find out that nothing they say makes sense anymore, because it's weather on demand. It's on location. It doesn't matter what's already going on. The system gets created around the need. All you got to do is pulse these puppies. Flare them up at different times of the days. So, Alabama, if you buy the Doppler radar, you might want to get out of the way if it's not too late, or hunker down and be above floodwaters. It's going right into it. And you got your, see this is drawing in that. Drawing it in. All right. I'm on the road. I'm making a movie. I got to keep moving because I got to drive through this puppy. Fair use notice for educational and environmental activism purposes. Credit to Disney for Zootopia. Now watch how the propaganda works to normalize weather modification, including power plants with synchronized release for maximum water vapor creation. Bunny's on her way to Zootopia, where a bunny can be anything the bunny wants to be. She's going through fair climate. See the steam coming out of the wall powered by what looks like power plants? Train goes through winter wonderland all of a sudden, powered by these synchronized water vapor releases that look like they're coming out of these circular vents. The whole winter wonderland world is ice frozen over artificially. In the perfected future, all animals live as one and all climates will be manageable. Now she's in a tropic, also assisted by man, as the song Try Everything plays. Try everything. And going back to our power plants and water vapor release, synchronized. All right, we are here with my guest, who shall be remain. Well, how may we refer to you?
I'm going to remain as much as an open book as possible, but to protect myself and my family. Captain G.
Captain G.
Of the 104th Transportation Division.
Okay, of the 104th Transportation Division. Rank at discharge.
Was a captain.
And branch of Army component active.
That's correct, 14 years.
Okay, POB.
Aberdeen Proving Grounds. That's where we test missiles.
Aberdeen, Maryland.
Yes, at that time, that's where my father was stationed.
Okay, and your time of discharge was medical.
Right, because during my second tour during Iraq, while in a sandstorm, I was ambushed, and for this great country that I thought believed in me, I took 5 bullets for, but as strange as it sounds, I would probably take another 5.
That's beautiful, and thank you for that. And you had deliveries too. What about some of the harder things you've delivered?
Well, in 2005, New Orleans was struck by what they call Hurricane Katrina. And at that time, I was stationed in a military base in Georgia. And I found it strange, but 11 days before the storm hit, 11 days, I mean, I don't even think I remember hearing anything being predicted about this storm coming until about 4 or 5 days before the storm. But this emergency conference came in for us to gather up as many body bags. We're going to need about 5,200 body bags. First thing I'm thinking is, oh, fuck. The Iraqis have taken over. You know, there's some big terrorist event that's about to go down on us. And basically, I was correct, but it wasn't. See, my mind was be trained to think that the Arabs, the Muslims, were our terrorists. But today, that particular day, the United States government was the biggest fucking terrorist. And I say this to say I love the military, but I don't love some of the stupid shit that we do. Unnecessary shit we do. But when they ordered the 5,200 body bags and told us that it's going to be for, they said the exact area. They named off certain wards, and they said there's nothing that we're going to be able to do. This is going to be such a major flood that we're going to need these body bags. They wanted us to deliver those. So we get there, we deliver them.
How did they know it was coming to New Orleans?
It had to be ordered. See, just like there's a chain of command. Obviously, somebody informed at that time the governor, okay? And then the governor was like, okay, Big Brother, federal government, is just giving me some information. I got to act on it. Because if I don't, then Big Brother can step on me, stomp on me, you know. Believe it or not, although I'm half black, half Hispanic, people don't realize how the Confederacy was so more right than the Union. But anyways, so I believe he was given some information about something that was going to go down. And this is how we're going to support you. You just take what we're giving you. And so anyways, once he gets that order, he has to take it in front of Congress. I don't know if y'all, so, you know, a lot of things that they vote on and talk about, you don't ever hear about. You know, they go into their little secret little chambers,
right.
Don't even need the whole assembly.
Right.
Just get 4 of us to agree, you know, type thing.
Right.
But anyways, so we did that, and I found it strange that that was all they wanted us to deliver at that time. They weren't concerned about
supplies, or...
right. But the day we got there, I also found it strange. Although you do have at that time on Poland, it was a naval base. I found it strange that I kept running into. It almost seemed like 3 teams of Navy SEALs. And although as an officer I am privileged to some top security stuff, but I don't think that that naval research base is a training facility of theirs. Though I could be wrong because I have not know much about naval intelligence, but I just found that strange that they were there.
They were in anticipation of something.
That's what I believe.
This was how many days again before the storm?
Now, at that point now, because it takes a while to gather up all of those, and we were told to work 24-hour shifts. So getting those things. So we fulfilled their order within right about 72 hours. So I would say this now marks us at about 8 days before the storm.
So 8 days before the storm,
5,226 is what we did.
5,226 body bags were delivered to New Orleans in anticipation to the storm, they were saying?
Yes, we were told that Hurricane Katrina was going to be they told us a Category 5.
Okay, that was when you got to New Orleans, they told you that.
No, that was, you remember the first briefing.
The first briefing.
So we already knew why we were bringing it up.
Category
I'm sorry.
5.
Right.
But why New Orleans and not some other part in the Gulf? Or is that just where it was going to land? Or how were they so sure that it was coming to New Orleans 8 days out?
New Orleans was going to be the hardest hit.
That's interesting because...
They could predict that they said by the satellite they were using with a 210% accuracy. of their prediction.
210 because they're driving it, in my opinion. But this is not something that I knew with 210%. There was like 2 days before the storm. I remember who was hyper aware of hurricanes because I was afraid of it because I grew up in LA where we had earthquakes. And when I came here and I heard about hurricanes, I was scared about it. But I knew we'd had the one the year before that was kind of like this false flag where everybody thought it was coming, but then it didn't come. And everybody was pissed off because they just spent hours trying to get out of town, but so there was kind of like this disarming. A lot of people were not kind of as anxious about it, and it wasn't until Saturday that I start worrying about it as I see people scurrying and I hear about it for the first time. I was busy. The first time I heard about it was a Friday before the Sunday that it came overnight. Landed Monday morning landfall. So 3 days before, I didn't really know. I mean, that's when I became alarmed.
And it's strange because after we, delivered the body bags, I was expecting to get an order just to turn back and go back to where we were stationed at this time in Georgia. But then immediately we get an order to stand by in the event that we need to be of some service. But I was thinking, okay, why not just stay here at the naval base? I think at that time you also had Jackson Barracks, and the nearest military base would be Belle Chase. But they wanted us specifically to be about 100 to 150 mile radius out, but be ready at moment's notice to be able to come back in.
And was it just to the region or to New Orleans specifically? Like, come back? Were they concerned about covering the region with body bags or New Orleans?
No, they told us leave those there, but
this was
they
for
wanted,
New Orleans.
Right, they did not want us to be in the city in the event when it hits, but to be within. For some reason, they gave the Pacific. It was 100. They want us to be no more or no less than 112 miles out.
Okay, well, that's interesting. And body bags, when you deliver body bags, do you normally deal in that count?
That was the most count that I've ever asked to have to load, and then the rush on them put a lot of strain, but it really tested my leadership. It tested the fellowship of my men and my team. It really, really was draining. Fights broke out. It was just frustrating. It was, but we came together and we got. That's why they say just do it and get her done. That's what we're about.
Okay. Where did you deliver some of these other body bags to?
That's it. Just New Orleans.
No, but you said you delivered body bags.
I'm sorry.
Times.
Oh, of course, like during times of war in Iraq, and then of course with the already decomposed bodies of the women and children in Nicaragua. So, but we've had counts in the thousands, but never that high. That's why I automatically thought that it was another attack like 9/11 or the towers.
Now, have you ever had to bring body bags for other weather events? Was that the only weather event you remember bringing a body bags for?
This is something along with the help of usually your National Guard or Coast Guard units. We would be, of course, being the federal government on the federal level and then on the state level. Of course, we would have the more resources. So in the event so when they don't have those resources, we're there to be of support and things of that nature. So it's very common. So to answer your question personally, I'm quite sure that my personal attachment has probably been doing this for years, but this was my first time ever responding to an event like this. I thank you. Gives an opportunity for not only vets, but people who are just tired of being sick and tired of the lies, a chance to feel like a voice. And with that being said, I want to end with a quote of John F. Kennedy. Ask not what your country could do for you, but what you could do for your country. I did not get on this show with an intention to bash the United States military, none of the branches. I love Uncle Sam, although at times we could feel, and I have felt it, that he doesn't love me. It's not that I don't love the United States of America. It's not that I don't love the United States Army. I just don't like the lies.
Amen. Okay, we're going to get more specific than this, but just to show you preliminarily, Katrina moved in through here, made landfall through KLIX. We're talking about the eye, not the walls. And kept going up. KDGX, KGWX, here on the border before going up. So that is, again, 3 for 3 going in on NexRad. Dunk, 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 dunk. Okay, and we saw that with Irma. It's the same spot. It hit the same place in the Keys. All right. I don't know how they navigated over the waters, if they let it be, if they stir it some other ways. But when it comes to land, it comes home over NexRad. This killed friends of mine. Not at the time, but the year later, in the aftermath. I buried a lot of friends. I found one. I've been treated like an asshole by my loved ones in my community for caring about climate engineering. Partly because I also had partially incorrect narrative. Not totally, but narrative that would not allow me to actually come closer to proving it, because there's so many gatekeepers in this field. And this part was noticed and recorded later on because at the time I was so emotional at the confirmation of my suspicions that the storm that was the most personal in my life was indeed following the trend of following Doppler radar. But there were 2 more Doppler radars even before I started counting in Florida. Both were hit and were along the path.
It's because some of these people, this is a new normal. They're never going to go back home. So they want to help them as much so that they're never just walking out of here and feeling like they're going back onto the street. They work with them throughout the process here to help them adjust to this new world order that they're going to be living in.